Please subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon below to get notifications.
Let us understand what is Microsoft Azure Administrator Certification Exam, popularly known as AZ-104. This section deals with the following topics. 1. Who are the audience for the exam? 2. Let us understand the exam overview. 3. Understand the learning path to start our journey. 4. Specifics about the certification exam. 5. Exam objectives and skill areas. 6. Identity critical or more important objectives versus non-critical or less important objectives. 7. Exam planning and preparation. And finally 8. Preparation versus exam results. Let us jump into details and define our next steps. Candidates for the exam should possess subject matter expertise to implement, manage, and monitor organization's Microsoft Azure environment. An Azure administrator mostly works as a part of the larger team to support Azure services, Azure workloads, security, and governance. The Azure administrator should be comfortable using Azure tools like PowerShell, Azure CLI, Azure Portal, and Azure Resource Manager templates. Last but not least, Azure administrator need to implement, manage, and monitor identity, governance, storage, compute, and virtual networks in a cloud environment, and also at times provision, size, monitor, and adjust Azure resources. The Microsoft Azure Administrator exam has 5 objectives, 19 skill areas and 106 requirements to prepare. If you observe, the certification objectives can be directly mapped to the roles and responsibilities of the Microsoft Azure Administrator discussed in previous video. However, there are 5 objectives that candidates should work towards gaining the understanding. 1. Manage Azure identities and governance with an allocation of 15% to 20% questions in the exam. 2. Implement and manage storage with an allocation of 10% to 15% questions in the exam. 3. Deploy and manage Azure compute resources with an allocation of 25% to 30% questions in the exam. 4. Configure and manage virtual networking with an allocation of 30% to 35% questions in the exam. 5. Monitor and backup Azure resources with an allocation of 10% to 15% questions in the exam. Let us look at the learning path, which defines how to plan our journey. Let us look at the learning path. Every learning is a new journey. Every journey starts with a destination. As we all know, we need to keep our backpacks ready before we start our journey. Besides, every journey has interim stops to cross before we reach our final destination. Certification journey details the prerequisites, the skills that need to be procured, resources need to go through, prepare and achieve the certification. First of all, the candidate need to fulfill the prerequisites, which will be discussed after this slide. Next, the candidate should aim to achieve the following objectives by equipping with relevant skill areas and answers to the requirements. We can find trusted sources of information related to the skill areas and requirements from Microsoft Azure Docs, Microsoft Learn page, and labs can be practices on Azure Portal. Even S5 Cloud Education acts as a content aggregator and helps find the information. Let us start packing our backpacks by looking at the prerequisites. The prerequisites for this certification include: 1. Apply and monitor infrastructure standards using Azure Policy. 2. Introduction to Azure Virtual Machines. 3. Networking Fundamentals. 4. Network Security Fundamentals. 5. Control services using Azure CLI. 6. PowerShell scripts to automate Azure tasks. 7. Identity management using Azure Active Directory. 8. Introduction to Docker containers. 9. Choose data storage approach. These prerequisites can be found in Microsoft Learn page AZ104, Prerequisites for Azure Administrators. Let us look at the exam specifics. First of all, AZ104 is a Microsoft Associate Level exam which automatically qualifies it for some fundamental design. The exam time is around 180 minutes while seat time is around 210 minutes. The extra time 30 minutes is for you to provide feedback or response on the questions you marked for review and comments. Never write your reviews/comments during the first 180 minutes for any question. Total number of questions can be around 40 to 60, mostly around 60. The number of labs can be around 7 to 15, mostly 10. So, you can expect around 10 labs and 50 other question types. We will discuss about question types in next video. Saying this, the average time per question is 3 minutes. This time includes responding to the question, revising them, marking question for review or comments, and also click the next or previous button. I will explain in detail about the Microsoft Associate Level exam in my next video. Besides, total number of question types are 10, while number of review screens are around 2. AZ104 is designed on Microsoft psychometric standards where Microsoft tries to assess accuracy, clarity, relevance, and objectivity with our skills. Last but not least, exam format is based on innovative testing and lab assessment is based on performance-based testing. Let us look at AZ104 objectives and skill areas. Before I jump into more details, let us set the fundamentals right. Every objectives has one or more skill areas. Every skill area has one or more requirements. We need to learn and profess the content to address these requirements and obtain skills to achieve the objectives. Imagine a situation. You are the certified Microsoft Azure administrator for one of the largest projects in an enterprise and carry a very good SME caliber in your teams. For say you are very strong in designing network, compute and storage, while you are concerned about your skills on identity management and governance and monitoring and backups. Your architect who is managing Azure solutions for multiple departments need a clear segregation of costs, security, monitoring, and identity management related to resources that will be deployed for new project has asked you to come out with a high-level solution for identity management and cost management and configure monitoring to oversee both at department and enterprise levels. The architect scheduled a meeting with you after 3 days and looking for your inputs. Just imagine the pressure you feel for next 3 days and nights. This is just because you did not find those topics interesting while learning, or you got bogged down by the concepts, or even you want to take a chance since the time for preparation is limited and later after passing the certification, you ignored it. Let's learn every objective and skill area with an intent to understand every fundamental detail needed. Let us look at the objectives in detail. The first objective: manage Azure identities and governance with an allocation of 15% to 20%. Based on the number of questions and labs listed previously, we can expect 8 to 10 questions, out of which 1 to 2 can be labs. There are 3 skill areas we need to get grip on. 1. Manage Azure Active Directory objects. 2. Manage role-based access control. 3. Manage subscriptions and governance. Azure Active Directory is the only identity management solution in Azure. From the administrator viewpoint, we need to understand what kind of objects are available in Azure Active Directory and how we can manage AD objects. While role-based access control is one of the foremost important topic we need to understand, there is much to understand what kind of roles are available in Azure, be it as classic administrator roles or Azure Active Directory roles or Azure roles. These roles have different capabilities at different scope. We need to be very clear which role need to be used for what function. Finally, it's about third objective: manage subscriptions and governance. Governance is always about how to make certain things in a certain way. Governance has multiple dimensions, be it related to policies, cost management, resources, etc. Besides, we need to have a clear picture of hierarchies in terms of resource management. Enterprise at different scale has different requirements in terms of management of resources, costs, migration, and others. We will learn about management groups, subscriptions, resource groups, resources, and policies that can be applied at different levels. As an Azure administrator, you would be asked to design governance at different levels. And yes, you will know it in next lectures. The second topic is implement and manage storage with an allocation of 10% to 15%. Based on the number of questions and labs listed previously, we can expect 5 to 8 questions, out of which 1 to 2 can be labs. There are 3 skill areas we need to learn. Manage storage accounts. Manage data in storage. Configure Azure files and blob storage. Managing storage accounts is all about creating storage accounts and configuring security, identity access to storage, network access, and network security. While managing data in storage is about importing and exporting data into storage accounts, configuring Azure files and blob storage deals with setting up file shares, file syncs, and configuring blobs. Deploy and manage Azure Compute Resources is one of the critical objectives for which Azure administrators should have relevant skills on. With an allocation of 25% to 30% in exam, you can expect 13 to 15 questions, of which 2 to 3 are labs. When you deal with compute, the primary skills you need to work on: setting up high availability, creation, and configuring virtual machines, different types of containers, and web apps. There are distinct reasons why you want to use virtual machines versus containers versus web apps. Finally, automation of deployment through ARM templates, VHD templates, and custom script extensions. Again, we need to use specific deployment mechanism when we are dealing with specific requirements. We will learn in detail in coming lessons. Configuring and managing virtual networks is one of the key capabilities an Azure administrator need to have. Setting up virtual network is about setting up a data center virtually to create a private network space for your resources. With an allocation of 30% to 35%, we can expect 15 to 18 questions, of which 3 to 4 are labs. As an administrator, set up virtual networks, define DNS, both public and private, set up network security through network security groups, firewalls, bastion servers to limit exposure, and DOS to enable perimeter security. Load balancer brings high availability to virtual machines, and load balancer are configured at virtual network level. We have multiple options to handle both Layer 5 and Layer 7 requests. Integration with on-premises infrastructures through VPN gateways, virtual WANs, and express route, which adapt different mechanisms for integration, and finally monitor and troubleshoot network issues. I personally think this is the most important, challenging but easiest topic in the whole series. You just cannot skip learning even a single topic here. Skipping a topic impacts your exam performance as well as your whole experience as Azure administrator in future. Last but not least, monitoring and backup resources is an objective with a 10% to 15% allocation which lists 5 to 8 questions and 1 to 2 labs in maximum. Even though this section has less allocation, most important skills needed to enable proactive monitoring of resources, analysis, and configure necessary actions at the time of alert. Backup is one of the critical activity for any enterprise. We can configure backups full, interim, policies and even replicate using Azure Site Recovery. Based on the previous explanation, observing allocations, we can clearly understand that objectives 3 and 4 are most critical objectives or mostly used skills by Azure Administrator while 1, 2, and 5 are non-critical or less used skills. Keep a note of it. Let us evaluate some basic planning about time management during the exam. Even our time management in exam is driven by the allocation provided for specific sections. One point to specifically highlight is, we need to allocation 10% to 15% of our time for labs which translate to 30 minutes to 45 minutes. We are working on best practices video to share how to prepare for Microsoft Azure Administrator exam which will be released soon. Last but not least, what if we focus completely on critical objectives and maybe less focus or even ignore 1 or 2 less important objectives? Is it okay? Definitely no. Microsoft engages a blueprinting process to identify different skills that needs to be performed by Microsoft Azure Administrator. They conduct a survey where they work with Microsoft SME teams to define objectives which cover specific skill areas. Microsoft conduct a psychometric assessment to identify each question which defines accuracy, clarity, relevance, and objectivity of the exam. Based on the scaled scoring, a specific question may or may not be in the final list of questions asked during the beta exam. Microsoft expects you to profess each objective and relevant skills needed to get the certification. You skip an objective, there is a high chance you may see a different result. So please don't ignore any objective whether critical or non-critical. We will detail all this information in our next video. Finally, let us look at 3 results. Result A. Result B. Result C. Result A got maximum marks in Objective 3 and 4 while minimal marks in Objective 1, 2 and 4. Result B got moderate marks in all objectives. Result C got good marks in 4 objectives, while minimal marks in Objective 1. Result A will be a sure fail because they failed to meet all the objectives. Result B will surely be a pass since even though they performed moderately, they could perform in all objectives. Result C runs on a probability. Marks in Objective A is bothering me. Finally, please become a master, at least jack of all the objectives to get certified.
Please visit our pages for more information.